Marvel is going to bring back the Avengers team to save the multiverse. But a month and a half after the announcement of this situation reversal, we still don't know much about this movie, except that Robert Downey Jr. would play Victor Von Doom, in addition to having played Tony Stark in the past. In this video, we will try to unravel the main plots that will make up this Avengers Doomsday. And when we take the time to look at the clues left on the right and on the left, and that we compile that with the Doom comics, it could be that we have very serious clues leading us to already one of the most anticipated movies by comic book fans. So before we start, it may be that in this video, I spoil quite present or future projects of the Marvel Universe. That's why we enter the spoiler zone of all dangers. You just have to relax as much as possible, because together we will enter in the end of the MCU as you know it, with its apocalypse, also called the Doomsday.
Let's f***ing go.
The 27th of July in the Hall H of the San Diego Comic-Con, everyone starts to think that Marvel doesn't give a damn about us, because for an hour there was not much to get into, until the moment when the Russo brothers, directors of Civil War, and the last two Avengers in particular, enter the scene to close this panel. And to the general surprise, they reveal the name of the next Avengers, the one who will introduce Secret Wars, Avengers Doomsday, played by Robert Downey Jr. Only, at the beginning, we had to have a movie named Avengers Kang Dynasty, and everything had been set up for Kang so far, except that Marvel had not planned that his main actor would be sentenced by the justice, but also that this character that I love is ultimately not seen as a real credible villain in the film Ant-Man Quantumania. Yes, because even if Jonathan Majors literally dies on screen in this movie, everyone will only remember that he was beaten by ants. So Kang Dynasty was an essential film to move forward on the most important film of all the MCU, Avengers Secret Wars. The most important, since this film will serve as a catalyst to start a new gateway to all those who have lost track of the MCU by creating a kind of reboot. The new MCU post-Secret Wars will allow to integrate the new X-Men, but also the Fantastic Four, and especially Miles Morales. And why not reset the stories of certain characters like Wanda, or simply cast new actors to play the heroes we love? Like, for example, a new Black Panther. So it has to be well done, because Secret Wars will literally include all the past, present, and future characters of Marvel movies. What No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine have already started to do. But what was Kang Dynasty supposed to tell? We start with Loki, who played the game of the one who remains by releasing the multiverse, and with this, all the variants of Kang. Variants who, by playing the wizard apprentices, have totally destabilized this multiverse, causing incursion on incursion. It is then that a Kang, whose family has been destroyed by their actions, decides to challenge them by entering into a bloody rage. In turn, he wants to avenge himself, destroying the universe of each of the Kang who killed his family. And this Kang is the one exiled in Quantumania by the Council, the Prime Kang, the Conqueror. A Kang who raped at the end of the film to the point of landing in the Beyond Zone, an area that would have given him powers, and where he would have suffered a storm of probabilities, like Ant-Man in Quantumania, which would have given him an army of clones ready to defeat the Council. The film would have been shot between the fight of the Council of Kang against the Avengers and the return of Kang the Conqueror, who would have come to take his revenge, to finally establish the battle world in void and potentially rebuild the sacred timeline, as in the plan of the one who remains, an endless cycle, only all this is over. The first screenwriter of the film was Jeff Loveness, screenwriter of Quantumania. He had to write this sequel. He was replaced by Michael Waldron to adapt the story in a way to get closer to Loki and TVA. To finish with the arrival of the Russo brothers, who installed the screenwriters of the Avengers, Infinity War, and Endgame, named Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. So let me tell you that the original pitch has probably ended up in the trash, because the Russos are very big fans of Doctor Doom, and they have always dreamed of adapting the first Secret Wars run of 1984, which was their favorite comic as a child. Now rest assured, even if they will take inspiration from it, the Russos like to pick a little everywhere to create their own adaptations. Obviously, the rewriting of Jonathan Hickman from 2015, which is today one of the most popular runs of Marvel, will remain the main inspiration. And there, I know what you're thinking. The video is about Doomsday, and I am talking about everything except that. It's normal. To better understand where we're going, you need all the pieces of the puzzle. So, to understand Doom and how it will act in Doomsday, we need to understand what's happening in Secret Wars. Let's start with the Hickman version. It's a gigantic event which lasted a year and a half, with the Times Run Out runs, which lead to Secret Wars. But don't worry, we'll will focus on Doom's role and stay on the surface. It all starts with the Beyonders, omnipotent beings who, after creating the multiverse, decide to delete it to create a new one. There's a reason for that, but I won't tell you because it's not relevant in our story. For that, he created a Nexus being, which is the same in all universes, called the Molecule Man, a being capable, with his powers, to destroy an entire universe, and who are programmed to all explode at the same time, destroying the entire multiverse at once. And that's where Dr. Doom comes in. He learns the plans of the Beyonders, and then embarks on his own Molecule Man to travel in the multiverse to assassinate a maximum of his variants before their planned end. A mission they won't be able to assume alone. That's why Doom will create a cult made of women called the Black Swans, who in turn travel the multiverse in search of the Molecule Man. Only this disruption in the Matrix leads to a bug in the multiverse, which triggers incursions. Basically, the universes that were to die themselves drift and collide with each other, destroying one or both universes at the same time, and consequently, the entire multiverse. And the nerve center of this collision happens, of course, on Earth, since it's here that was the epicenter of the planned explosion. Doom changes plans and decides to capture the Molecule Man rather than kill them. Strange, on his side, investigates these incursions and discovers that Doom is responsible for them. But Victor explains to him that he has a plan to defeat the Beyonders, and Steven decides to help him. And it's then that the multiverse is ready to disappear that Doom summons the Beyonders. They appear through a crack, which, by the way, looks a lot like the one behind Iliad in Loki, and Doom sends them all the Molecule Men at the same time in the face to blow them up. The bomb works, Doom defeats the Beyonders, steals their power, and rebuilds a world made of the multiverse debris, a world called Battleworld, of which he is the God King. And that's how the event Secret Wars begins. And as I told you, this comic will surely be the main inspiration for Doomsday. Because as the Russo brothers say, there is a very important character to bring justice to Secret Wars. And it's, of course, Doom. And when we look at all this a little closer, we realize that all the elements have already been put in place to lead us to Doomsday. In particular, the notions of variants, incursions, and agglomerators. Let me explain. Variants are basically a multiverse at Marvel, a fun way to see the other skins of our favorite characters. They have been mentioned in almost all the projects, especially in Loki, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, Quantumania, Deadpool, and Wolverine. And even in the Marvels, by the way. The incursions are therefore the trigger elements that will lead to the end of the multiverse. So far, these are the variants of Kang that were supposed to trigger them, but it surely led to change. We'll talk about it right after. The incursions have been mentioned by the one who remains, Kang and Reed Richards from the Universe 838, and we have already seen them in Multiverse of Madness in the Marvels. And there is a good chance that they will be the subject of the next Fantastic Four. Obviously, the central subject of Doomsday, finally the notion of agglomerator, or being anchored, in particular developed in Deadpool and Wolverine. It is a special being whose death causes the disappearance of his universe. However, according to Paradox, it would still take 2,000 years after the death of an agglomerator to see this universe disappear. So even if we are far from the Molecule Man that makes his universe explode, it is the concept that comes closest to it. It only remains to integrate Doom in all this. But before continuing, I invite you to subscribe if you like my theories and explorations, and activate the bell to not miss any more content on the channel. But then, what do we do with Kang? I have always defended the idea that the one who remains had won against Loki, and that Loki had only followed the path traced for him in the infinite loop of Kang. And I think that this was really what was planned, since the events of Loki Season 2 had to start the War of the Kang. It was sure. However, they were clever and let the doubt float, whether it was at the end of Loki or Quantumania. So, will it come back? Will it not come back? In view of the drastic change of direction, I think that now we can say it. The loop of Kang is broken. But is it really by the acts of Loki? I don't think so. It is possible that a grain in the gear has ultimately made everything change, that a choice had been different from the usual cycle, a choice that will absolutely change the fate of the multiverse as it has always known, the one who remains. And this choice is that of Doom, who in my opinion is a variant of Tony Stark. Firstly, because they are closely linked. In his story made of time travel, Kang, alias Nathaniel Richards, is convinced that he is a descendant of Victor Von Doom, whom he admires. A character, however, born 1,000 years earlier. And yet Kang has the name of his own family, Richards, the same as Reed. So it has never been concretely established with certainty the family bond that links Kang to Reed or Victor, but he is convinced to be their descendant. But above all, Kang's armor is 100% inspired surrounded by that of Doom, whom he met during a time travel in his youth. Since then, in many stories, they share their adventures, which will always lead by the victory, sometimes fatal, of Doom. Whether it is in the first Secret Wars of 1984, but also in the Doctor Doom run of 2020, or even in 2023 in the run of Kang named Timeless. And I don't think that Marvel will simply never talk about Kang again. It's not logical, and it would be really weird. Until now, he has been presented everywhere as a threat, and suddenly he would no longer exist. So I think that if they had simply recast the character, it could have been weird. I agree. Jonathan Majors is an excellent actor, and they would have had a hard time making Kang assume all the roles by someone else, but here the situation is totally different. They introduced Dr. Doom and made him play Robert Downey Jr. It's simply the perfect backstab. Tomorrow, Kang could change sex that no one would say because the appearance of Doom will shock everyone. So I think that Kang will still have his role to play, and that our Doom will probably be his hunter, just like he hunted the Molecule Man in the comics. But I don't think it will be the center of the story because the pivot has already happened. Since Quantumania in early 2023, in Loki Season 2, there is no longer a single notion of Kang, not even in Deadpool and Wolverine when the TVA is involved. And I remind you that their new mission is precisely to watch over Kang's variants. And the next film to talk about multiverse and to lead us to Doomsday will be the Fantastic Four. And so far, nothing suggests that Kang will be involved. Well, I don't think so. So it's possible that Doom has already started his work, his little genocide of Kang. And there is a good chance that Doomsday is actually a dance-off between Doom, Kang, and Loki. Once again, I explain myself. A new clue has recently appeared. I don't know if you know it, but most films, when they are in production, work under aliases. Basically, they have a code name, which allows them to keep the secret and avoid changing each time if the name of the film changes during production, as was the case, for example, for the next Captain America. And at Marvel, we always like to put little Easter eggs in these names. For example, Avengers 1 was called Group Hug, which means a group hug since the heroes finally reunited. Captain America First Avenger was called Frostbite, which means frostbite since Cap is under the ice. And Civil War was called Sputnik, like the satellite launched by the Russians, a term that means Russian travel companion. Well, I let you make the comparison with the movie. Anyway, they are not the only ones, since Titanic was called Planet Ice, for example. Well, if we look at the alias of our next two Avengers, we say that either the Russo brothers make fun of us or they really want to reveal it to us on the movie. Doomsday has a code name for all time, always, which is obviously a reference to the Loki series since it is the motto of the TVA under the One That Remains. As for Secret Wars, the code name is Royal, which obviously reminds us of the term Battle Royale, taken from the eponymous movie and which is used a lot today in video games. It is a game mode where dozens of players enter an arena and where the last survivor wins the game. Clearly a reference to the very first Secret Wars of '84. In this first opus, a being, the Beyonder, kidnaps all the greatest heroes of the Earth and puts them against the greatest villains to see who, for better or for worse, will win. It's the very first Marvel crossover in history, and it's been a hit. We can find the Avengers, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four against villains like Galactus, Doom, Ultron, or even Kang. It's purely a royal battle, and Doom takes his share of the game by stealing the powers of Galactus and those of the Beyonder. But let's go back to Doomsday. For all time, always is clearly an indication that Loki will have a role to play in this story. Rumors indicate that the film could include up to 60 characters and heroes. I don't know if you realize it's absolutely huge. To give everyone some screen time, they will be divided into small teams to fight on several battlefields, a bit like in Infinity War. But who will they fight? A Doom army or a Kang army? What if it was just another Earth? In the comics, while the multiverse lives its last hours, the heroes of Earth 616 in the Ultimate World fight to save their world. What if Doomsday showed us the clash between the heroes of Earth 616, the Avengers, and the mutants of the 1005 universe, the X-Men and Deadpool? Avengers versus X-Men. Whatever happens, the film is called Doomsday, so there's a good chance that it's Doom who has the most screen time. I also think that this film will really be shot around the character and his story, and not necessarily focused on a well-defined like in the past. And so there's a good chance that, like in the comics, despite its self-centered intentions, Doom puts everything in his power to stop the threat, and so that he's the real solution rather than the enemy. At least in this film, because he'll have all the time to be the enemy in Secret Wars. So I think that the Kang's advice will always be the threat, but in the end at least, in that Doom will be their hunter. And just like in the comics, he'll quickly understand that he alone won't be able to stop them in time. And that's how one of the Kang will blow Loki's name. Because in my opinion, it's quite difficult to introduce, in addition to all that, a character as nebulous and omnipotent as the Beyonder. A character that, in the end, looks a lot like what Loki has become, a god outside the multiverse. What if Doom ended up attacking the TVA through the void to finally face Loki in a scene that could look like what happened in the comics, giving him the powers of the god of stories on the whole multiverse, with the ability to remove all the Kang at once to save him, and at the same time, remodeling a world in his image, which could also offer us one of the most impressive of the MCU, Loki versus Doom. So to sum up, the movie The Fantastic Four will end up with a real threat on the multiverse, the incursions. Doom could then have been on a mission for years to try to prevent the destruction of the multiverse, either by tracking the Kang or by interacting in one way or another with the agglomerators. The Avengers, on their side, will fight to survive their universe, whether against the Kang or the mutants of another universe. Kang will then find a way through the TVA to face Loki, steal his powers, and destroy the threat of the multiverse while creating his own world. This is what will lead us to Secret Wars. What is very interesting in this concept is that Robert Downey Jr. and Loki started the MCU as heroes and villains, and that it could well be that the end of the saga of the multiverse ends with an opposite scenario. When you think about it, it's pretty cool. But what if I told you that another character could make his appearance? A character that could have a very great importance for the sequel that would lead him to the path of redemption? Do you know who I'm talking about? I'm obviously talking about Wanda, since our Wanda has totally disappeared. And it's true that we've never seen her body. However, in the comics, following the House of M event, where she simply deleted 99% of the mutants on Earth, Wanda simply disappeared for years until being searched by Wiccan, a member of the Young Avengers, who is convinced that the Red Witch is her mother. She will then be found under the protection of Dr. Doom in Latveria, totally amnesic and living a simple life. And there too, her powers could be very useful to remodel reality. She who, in the end, hates what the multiverse has sent her back. It's up to you to give me your opinion now. Don't hesitate to let me know your theories. I love reading them and to debate with you as usual. Thank you for watching this video. Also, to not miss my next videos, subscribe and activate the notification bell. See you next time on KraziGeek.